We are back in the lab again. Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, we're taking a look at Labrynth with the new cards in Dominus Impulse. We could also technically play Dominus Purge, seeing as how we could set the trap card, but it's not nearly as useful. But with that, yeah, we're back on Lab with a whole bunch of traps, because traps just keep getting better and better. So here's the deck list that I ended up playing, and yeah, it's pretty simple. It's just a bunch of trap cards alongside actually a lot more options to kind of start playing the game on turn 0 with the furnitures, as well as triple Arias. So yeah, we'll just quickly do the card by card. If you don't know how Lab works, it's basically utilizing a bunch of normal traps in order to generate advantage through the effects of our Labrynth monsters. So you use things like Lovely, where if a card leaves the field via the effect of a normal trap card, it can pop a card. And then Lady can also set another trap card by chaining to a trap card. So pretty useful, and then a bunch of other effects to either get additional trap cards or to get your Labrynth cards in rotation. Starting off here with Kuklok, we're playing one of this to just allow us to basically activate a trap the turn we set it, which is fantastic. We're also playing two of Stovey and Chandelier, which basically do the same thing. You discard a card in order to you discard it and another card in order to set a Labrynth trap, basically, from the deck. We're not playing the Labrynth spell, so it's basically just these two, which both special summon Labrynth monsters via different ways. We have the one Ariana as just a target for the traps to special summon and then get additional searches, like for example searching out the Stovey to pitch something like a rollback or what have you. Right. We have the 3 Arias, which basically says, hey, activate a trap on the first turn, which is fantastic. Yeah, you just main phase, quick effect, send it to the graveyard in order to either special summon a Lab, which comes up occasionally, like you can special summon an Ariana, which is nice, but it's less common in this, or set a trap that can be activated from, that can be activated that turn, which is fantastic. We also have the one Lovely as a target for our traps, and then the 3 Lady as just additional ways to get these big bodies onto the field. As for the traps, we are playing quite a few, as you can see, 25. We're playing 2 Torrential Tribute as basically a removal spell, which is very nice. It's just, hey, if your opponent summons a whole bunch, you can entirely nuke the field, which is pretty strong. It's not insane, but it's just like one of the best options in terms of removal outside of this guy, which we'll talk about in a second. We're also playing 3 Trap Trick because we have a lot of targets that we want to hit, and this just basically gets us to our better traps, which is Daruma Cannon and Simultaneous, so that's why we are playing 3 of this. Pretty simple. We're also playing 3 Welcome Lab as well as 3 Big Welcome Lab. Welcome Lab just special summons from the deck, locking us into Fiends, a Labrynth monster, and then Big Welcome pretty much does the same thing, except it can also grab from grave or hand as well, and then it bounces a monster you control to the hand. Now, notably, this is actually advantageous in Lab because a lot of the Lab cards specifically activate or like will return and generate additional advantage, like the furnitures or Welcome or what have you. They will trigger when a card leaves the field via the effect of a normal trap. Doesn't matter if it's your card or your opponent's, as long as it is a monster that leaves the field via a trap effect or normal trap effect, you are able to then activate their effects. So with Big Welcome returning a card to the hand, you can trigger things like Lovely, you can trigger things like Stovey or Chandelier, or even Welcome, which just allows you to do a little bit more. So it's very nice. It also has a graveyard effect where you can banish it in order to bounce a card, which is also pretty good. We have the 3 Daruma to just book the entire field and send away Link monsters, which is very nice. We also have the Simultaneous Equation Cannon we're playing 3 of. This card is kind of crazy. It's basically a math problem that says banish your entire opponent's field if you do the math problem correctly. I'm not going to explain it too much. I'll explain it when it shows up in the replay. But yeah, that's basically it, and that's why our extra deck looks the way that it does. We're also playing the 3 Dominus Impulse, which is a crazy card that says if your opponent controls a card, you can activate this card from your hand. And when a card or effect is activated that includes the effect that special summons the monster, you could just negate that effect. And then if there's a trap in your grave, you could destroy that card as well. So it's basically just another way to stop things like fusion spells or just anything that would like special summon a monster. So there you go. You just, no, And since you're playing a bunch of traps as well, it becomes even better, given the fact that you are able to pop the card. Now, on top of that, you can activate it from hand, but if you do, you're locked out of light, earth, and wind monster effects. Now, in Lab, that doesn't matter as much because we're not playing the Fiendsmith stuff. Granted, you could play the Fiendsmith stuff, but that basically means you can't play Impulse, but instead we're playing Impulse as basically an additional hand trap. And then we're also playing 2 Rollback as a way to just activate additional traps in Grave. And then we're also playing 3 Floodgates in Anti-Spell, the Rivalry of Warlords, and Skill Drain. These just happen to be the best ones. This is a very high-powered meta. You just kind of have to play these. I mean, you don't have to, but, like, you got to play some sort of Floodgate, whether that's Dimensional Barrier or these or what have you. So, yeah. And then, of course, the 2 Maxi. And the extra deck is pretty much all just for the Simultaneous Equation Cannon, minus Typhon. Typhon's just a solid card. But honestly, I would probably change the math on the extra deck, which I'll talk about later. But let's hop into the replays and show you how this deck performs. Alright, here we are going first, and that is a fantastic hand. 5 traps. Granted, we're not going to set this one. But that's pretty much what this deck aims to do. Go first, set traps, pass. Right. Very simple first turn. Basically, you're entirely playing the game on the opponent's turn. My opponent is going to reveal that they are on Blue Eyes. Yeah. They also end up grabbing the Veiler here, which is kind of interesting because that means that they basically have all of their other monsters that they would want. So, not really too concerned about, like, that. I just know that they have everything here. Out comes Maiden. They're going to activate the effect in order to set the True Light. True Light effect is going to activate. They're going to set the Wishes. Sure. Not really anything I'm going to be able to do here. Our hand is just kind of mid. I could have Impulsed there. Not going to do that. Doesn't really seem all that useful here. They're going to go Maiden. I'm again going to allow that. And out comes Sage. They're going to activate the effect in order to target the Maiden. And I'm actually going to chain the Impulse here so that they don't get the Maiden and the summon from the Sage. Yeah, they would have gotten an additional Blue Eyes basically here, as well as the additional Tuner. This is kind of stupid though. I realized like halfway through, oh, this isn't gonna send. So yeah, this was just kind of silly. I should have held the Impulse for Spirit Dragon. Spirit Dragon hits the field and I can just remove it. So that would have been significantly better. But alas, out comes Roar. They're gonna activate the Roar effect and grab a Jet Dragon. Jet Dragon is kind of an issue, but I don't know, it's not that big of an issue. However, they do end up going for an additional normal summon here with Master before going into any Synchro monsters, which means I could just book the field and prevent them from basically doing anything at this point. And yeah, basically, they don't really have any other follow-up plays. Because they kind of played this a little bit poorly, just with the way that they didn't immediately go into Spirit Dragon. Because if they go Spirit Dragon there, at the very least, they could have gone and, like, gotten an Azure or something along those lines. They could have at least had, like, a body on their field. Granted, Daruma just kind of cooks them either way, but it still would have been something. But alas, we can just go for the Welcome here in order to go into the Ariana, and Ariana effect is going to activate in order to grab the Sobi so that we can pitch this rollback from our hand. So we're going to pitch the rollback here, and my opponent's going to droll, just because, I don't know, it's funny. Droll does nothing against this deck, which is another fantastic thing. Yeah, this deck, like, doesn't lose to pretty much any of the standard hand traps that are seeing a bunch of play right now. Doesn't really lose to Fuwa Loss, doesn't really lose to Maxi. Like, sure, you can play into those, and they can be an issue, but for the most part, they're not really that big of an issue. It doesn't lose to Droll, which is a big thing. It doesn't lose to Nibiru. It doesn't lose to... the biggest thing is it loses to Ash Blossom, but it also does happen to lose to Impulse. Granted, Impulse also cuts people off of Lights, and with the insane amount of Fiendsmith running around, you're a lot less likely to see Impulse. And with the other one, Dominus Purge, being something that locks you out of fire and stuff like that, but more specifically, something that prevents searches. Again, not really something that's that big of a deal. So even the new hand traps aren't that crazy right now against this deck, which is pretty nice. Anyway, we set the Big Welcome, and then I'm going to reset an additional Big Welcome off of the Trap Trick so I can activate it. We're going to go for the Big Welcome here for Lovely so that we can pop a card and kind of go from there. I actually believe I pop a card in hand, if I'm not mistaken. No, I pop the set card. Because this is not really that big of a deal for me right now. I can pop that later. But this is a big issue. Majesty of White Dragons, if they have a Blue Eyes in hand, or I believe they have a... no, they don't have a Blue Eyes in grave. But if they have a Blue Eyes in hand, that becomes a big issue for me, because them just being able to non-target pop a card becomes pretty bad here. It's not that big of a deal, but like it could be an issue. Anyway, we're gonna go for Big Welcome after drawing for turn a SnowiKs, and we can set off of that a Lady, or off of Lady, a simultaneous equation cannon, which is kind of crazy. And then we're gonna grab up the Coup Clock here. We're then going to reset, and my opponent just realizes that the writing on the wall and just goes, yeah, you got it. I actually do think I have lethal there with the ability to special summon another monster off of the Coup Clock SnowiKs, so I can go Coup Clock, activate, and then pitch with SnowiKs, bring back the Coup Clock, and then activate off of the Coup Clock effect to like special, and then I just have to nuke their True Light, and away goes their entire field, and I attack for well over lethal. So, good game. Alright, here we are going second, and let's see what we can do. This is actually not a bad hand. We did draw the Maxi, so I'm immediately going to fire that, to which my opponent will reveal that they are on Lab. So, yeah. Sweet. Nice Maxi. Our hand is not exactly great, but it's not bad, especially for the mirror match. Having the ability to see multiple welcomes is pretty nice. And then we draw Lady, which is probably the best draw we could have had. So they're in the standby phase going to activate the Big Welcome, and I'm immediately going to fire this Lady here. Then they're going to activate Power Sync Stone and lose a turn. Now, here's the thing. I'm immediately going to tell you, don't play Power Sync Stone. I think Power Sync Stone is a just bad card to play in Labrynth. Reason being, in theory, it seems like it would be skill drain, which is not bad. However, due to the nature of Power Sync Stone, and due to the nature of a lot of decks currently in the metagame, and just like in general in Yu-Gi-Oh!, oftentimes your opponent will get an effect and you won't. Which just makes it like way worse than skill drain, and you're probably better off playing like Anti-Spell Fragrance or some other floodgate of that variety, even like a normal trap floodgate, like something that you can reset with Lovely, like a dimensional barrier, etc. So for the most part, I really think that this card is just like horrendous. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Anyway, and you'll see why in this duel, why I'm not that big of a fan of it, just due to the nature of the way the Power Sync Stone works. Anyway, out comes Big Welcome. They're going to grab up their own Lady, and then they're going to activate a few card effects. They're going to go 1 and 2, and out comes all of their bodies, and that's fine. Lose a turn, I actually don't mind. I do think that would be pretty good in this deck. Just due to the nature of how your cards work, you're basically special summoning them and then not really doing anything with them. So there's that. They're going to set an additional card here. They're going to set another Big Welcome, and we just have our sets as well. They're going to then special summon the Coup Clock as well and just pass the turn. During the end phase, they remove the counters. Alright. So it's their turn, and they draw Ariana because of course they do. But I'm going to chain the Welcome here because this basically means that by doing this, 2 counters are going to go onto the Power Sync Stone, negating the effect of the Ariana. Now that sounds really weird, but Power Sync Stone works in a very strange way, because technically speaking, it immediately applies its effect at the point of resolution for the effect. Now technically, there's 3 points at which an effect takes place. There's the activation, which is where most things end up being negated or interacted with. Basically, this is checking, hey, is this allowed to resolve? This is when priority passes back, right? Chainlink 1, Ariana. Chainlink 2 is when activation is still being considered. The second thing that takes place for an effect is resolution, which basically checks, did everything happen in order to allow this effect to resolve? At point of resolution is just checking whether or not something has happened that would cause the effect to have been negated or what have you, and basically the Chainlink works in that way. Chainlink 3 is when the effect or like the third thing that happens in an effect is when the effect actually takes place. So basically, if an effect is negated via the effect of like a skill drain or imperm or something like that, the resolution still takes place, and then the effect would take place. At point of resolution, the effect is negated, but they still have to then activate the effect, and it would then be negated, which would mean that it wouldn't resolve. It doesn't activate the effect, but like, anyway. The point is like, you activate, you resolve, and then the effect would take place. And because of the wording on this, basically what it says is one effect is activated and resolves and is a-okay. The second effect that activates and resolves is then negated because there's a second counter on this, right? It's very weird, but basically understand that if 2 effects of monsters are activated in a chain, the first monster effect will be negated by Power Sync Stone. The first one in the chain, right? So that's basically what's happening here. My opponent's going to go for the Big Welcome, which will allow me to then activate my own lady here, which is pretty nice of them. Anyway, we're going to set the Simultaneous Equation Cannon, and keep that in mind. This card is going to come in quite handy. Out comes Lovely as well, and they're going to bounce the Ariana so that it can't be negated via the Power Sync Stone. But there you go, there's the second thing, and everything is now negated, as you can see here. So, before even this effect has resolved, since the two effects have resolved, everything is now immediately negated. Anyway, out comes the Big Welcome, and I actually do special summon the lady here, just so that I guarantee that I have a lady on my side of the field, since they are going to have the ability to switch their lady to attack position and walk over one of my guys, which I don't want. Anyway, out comes the Chandelier here, and this seems like a pretty bad position for me, but it's actually very advantageous, because their floodgates are going to be more disadvantageous for them than they are going to be for me. I'm playing a lot of traps, and so yeah, this just ended up being pretty decent for me. They also set the field spell, which is something of note, because we know that they have the trap card here as well, and out comes the SP Little Knight. Now, this may seem like a good play, but it's actually what's going to kill them. It actually just doesn't do anything, and is just disadvantageous for them. And, again, it is mostly due to the fact that Power Sync Stone works the way that it does. Right? If it didn't, it'd be fine. But, anyway, not really that big a deal. I'm just immediately going to go to combat here, which will fiend out the Big Welcome, and this is all important. I want them to activate their Big Welcome so that I can chain my lady, which then, if they chain SP, will activate and could potentially tag out, but what will end up happening is that I can just activate the Simultaneous Equation Cannon in response to that and just banish the field in its entirety. I also can activate my Simultaneous Equation Cannon here in response to the Big Welcome, which I believe is what I do here, because it actually works out better for me with the math, and it means that their SP Little Knight is less likely to actually resolve and do anything here. Now, what they should have done here, this is the actual correct play here, is what they should do is activate the SP Little Knight in response to my Simultaneous Equation Cannon, right? Because if they do that, I then have to chain an additional thing to just like make the math work out, as well as to potentially get the lady to negate them. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and it is all because of Simultaneous Equation Cannon. Basically, what's taking place is I need to get a certain amount of cards on the field and in hands in order to make this work. So, they have a level 8, which means I need to banish a fusion and an Exe that equal level 8. However, I have to banish 2 XYZ monsters, so that additional XYZ monster has to be, or sorry, both Exe monsters have to be the same rank, which all the levels and ranks combined need to equal the amount of cards that are currently on the field. Now, the math gets kind of funky here because of the fact that Lady can also trigger to put additional guys onto the field, and SP can also trigger in order to remove cards from the field. So this is where the math becomes very interesting. So first and foremost, let's just count how many cards are currently on the field and in the hand. That is important. Hand also matters. So currently my opponent has 7 cards, and I have 6, right? They're going to set an additional card off of Lady, which means now they have, now they have 8 cards, and I still have 6. That is a total of 14 cards, right? Which means I need to banish 14 rank and levels from my extra deck, 2 of which have to be Xyz, 1 of which has to be a fusion, in order to, and then have the fusion and the Xyz equal an 8. Now, there's a calculator that helps you with this, but it is good to understand how this actually works and why it's going to work the way that it does. So I'm just going to explain. So here, they're going to activate their effect, and they are going to then set an additional card, and this resolves. What they should have done, again, is activate the SP, targeting these 2 monsters, which then would have gotten levels off of the field. That would have just been the best option for them. They're going to set a card. It's not going to matter what it is, because it's not going to activate. But at this point, we are going to then activate the Simultaneous Equation Cannon, and we are going to banish 2 6s and a 2. So 2 and 6 equals 8, and 6 plus 6 is 12, plus 2 is 14. So a total of 14 with 8 being the cumulative with a fusion and a rank, meaning we can then indicate one of their level 8 monsters and banish their entire field by putting back a Phoenix Z and a fusion. So their entire field gets banished, and they do get to 2 special and just bounce the lady, but at this point the game is over. There's not really much that they can do. They're going to activate a few more cards, but again, I'm just clearly at a massive advantage at this point, and they realize it and just concede. Good game. Alright, here we are going first, and hey, this is a fairly decent hand. This is going to show you what Arius can do. Now, Arius also is a quick effect, so you can do this on the opponent's turn as well. Here we have the Daruma cannon, which means that we are able to potentially set a Daruma on the opponent's turn and use that as disruption, which is very nice. Granted, we're not going to do that. We're going to go for the welcome here instead. I'm then going to go for the SnowiKs in order to set a big welcome, and then we're going to activate the regular welcome here. I'm still going to try and activate it just so that I can get a god here. My opponent's going to Ash that, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. I could have activated the Arius here. I elect not to because of Max C, but alas, we're just going to activate the rollback, which we happen to pitch off of our SnowiKs and get our lovely anyway. So out comes Lovely, and this may seem kind of strange to give them the draw in order to do this, but the reason for this is because Lovely has this incredible line of text that says, your opponent cannot activate monster effects in response to the activation of your normal trap cards. Now, notably, this means that Ash Blossom and Ghost Bell are turned off, which means you can freely activate your welcome and big welcome. Well, not freely now that Impulse exists, but more or less freely. So we're going to now activate our welcome in order to grab up Ariana, and Ariana is going to special summon the big lady, which will then get us a big welcome and lady's effect. We're going to do pretty much the, this is kind of a standard play if you get uninterrupted. With this, which is pretty nice. You grab up the Coup Clock as well as a trap trick, or pretty much any trap that you want, and then you are able to have the Coup Clock be able to activate to prevent the opponent from really doing anything, and my opponent sees the writing on the wall and just concedes there. Good game. Alright, we're back with the deck, and honestly, this deck is still incredibly fun. It also does have a lot more utility due to the fact that Dominus Impulse is such a powerful card, and just, yeah, overall, I think it's fairly good into the current metagame. It's not insane. Obviously, like, going second feels really bad into, like, White Forest or Snake Eye or anything like that, but all in all, it's still not terrible, right? Being able to, like, set 5 and pass is still not bad against those decks, so all in all, it's still pretty decent. That being said, I will say, I was going to talk about the simultaneous equation cannon math, and just going to be real quick about it. Basically, what you would do is you would take out the level 6, because it very rarely comes up, and you would add in either 2 rank 2s or Chaos Angel. I think Chaos Angel is a little bit better because of the fact that you are able to just utilize it more efficiently with the Arius and the Ariana, or your level 2 SnowiKs and your level 8 here, and it's just like an additional thing that you can go into in the extra deck. It's always been pretty useful as well, seeing as how like it prevents you from being destroyed by battle and stuff like that, which can be useful against like against Tenpai and the like. So there's a bunch of stuff like that could be changed, right? You could take out the Typhon and the Chaos Angel for 2 rank 2s in order to utilize that for a little bit more math. But basically the level 6 is kind of useless. That being said, the rank 6 is also not too exceptional. So there's that. You could also potentially play rank 7s. There's a bunch of stuff like that you could do. But for the most part, I would say that at the very least, you need 2 through 5 in the levels and 3 through 5 in the ranks. So 2 3s, 2 4s, and 2 5s. And those generally are what I would suggest. The rank 2s allow you to hit level 6 a little bit better against like Fiendsmith and what have you, because you can go like 2, 2, and 4 or something along those lines, right? Which is a bit easier. But that being said, it's not insane in any capacity to add those additional 2s, because generally you're not going to be able to hit like Fiendsmith or what have you. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah, more or less, I still really enjoy this deck. I still find it very fun, and that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys did indeed enjoy it. If you did, like us very much, so appreciate it. And remember to always stay frosty. Bye bye.